all. I'm Radhika Kotnara. I'm a consultant clinical psychologist, and today we are going to be talking about contempt in relationship altogether. And for this, we have over here Kriti Kamal with us, who's an expert in this area. She's a relationship and intimacy coach, also an RCA licensed rehabilitation counselor. So, before we start with anything over here, I'd like to throw up a question for the audience over here. What do you think relationship actually and how does it really matters to all individuals in our life?
Yeah, it's a very
What is the importance
important.
of relationship?
So, Vandita,
Right? Kriti, would you
how
like
is it
to throw
important to
some
you?
light for us on that? Yes. Would you like to throw some light for us on that? That why relationships are actually important in our life?
Um, okay. If, as a psychologist, if you know about uh, the graph of stress, and we know the huge stressor that comes to uh, human life as a trigger is when you get separated from the most dearing relationship you have. That could be because of death, that could be because of some kind of separation. And you see that, a lot of people are going through a lot of anxious state, separation anxiety and grief, and everything has somewhere a lot to do with people that we are associated with. And not only that, when you talk about relationships, somewhere the relationship with yourself plays a very important role. And I believe if that's not sorted, the relationship around you will never be sorted. So that's what I have to talk about relationship.
Very well said.
Yes.
See, can you start by explaining us, our today's topic like contempt in relationship? Could you explain to us what contempt is actually and how does it actually differs from negative behaviors like somebody going into a criticism or having frustration in a relationship?
Okay, rightly put, Varnika. Contempt is a huge word, and let me tell you, this has been given by John Gottman, who is a psychotherapist and who's a relationship expert, and we go by his theories. But a lot of time, contempt is misconstrued by criticism and frustration. Though frustration and criticism does bring a lot of contempt, but what contempt is technically is how you basically communicate with your partner or people around you. And contempt comes with a sense of superiority, where I feel that I'm better than you, and I'll have that kind of uh, jargon around my communication when I'm going to talk to you in contempt. That is a little different than criticism. I'll give you an example. So, for example, you are someone who have not done the kitchen chores. Okay, so I'll just say, Vandika, you know, please, you never help me with the kitchen chores. You never do dishes for me. Okay, but the contempt would be, you never do dishes for me, Vandika. Are you what, like lazy or useless? I mean, have you ever been taught how to do things properly? That's the difference of being critical or somewhere being trying to show some superiority on other people, like you're useless, Varnika. You know nothing. I'm the better person. Yet I'm not going to do it for you, huh? By the way, I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm going to contempt. That is what uh, goes beyond frustration and criticality.
So contempt
Yeah.
to me
So,
sounds like somebody who is intentionally with a motive trying to be critical about the other person, trying to bring about some hurt to them, trying to bring about them a little bit down also, and emotionally and psychologically, it might have a long term impact on a person. Right. So you've mentioned that, contempt can have a lot of physical kind of an impact also on the person, not only just on the psychological level, but you said that, a person can feel frustrated. And we all know stress and frustration on a long term might have an impact on a person. Can you explain to us how contempt leads to issues like, having long term stress or weakening the immune system?
okay. So, Vanika, you've actually said it all. Contempt is pretty much dangerous. Um, Gottman when he was, he worked on a relationship and he was trying to find out what are the key factors that are responsible for divorce, or which will, kind of lead you to divorce. Like it's a dead end. So he gave us a theory of four horsemen of apocalypse as a concept, where he said that criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt are four behaviorism that will eventually lead to uh, the dead end of the relationship. And not only that, that is something, we use it as an assessment. So when we have couples, when we are trying to counsel them and we're trying to figure out what is the level of their distressed story, these are the four factors which can tell us. So if we have all four of it, then, it's doomed. So but what I want to tell you here is, because we are talking about health, contempt actually takes you to a lot of health related issues. It's kind of dangerous. It's like, you are like, so people who are contempt. As I said, I'm going to contempt on you. I'm going to give you sarcasm, mock you around, put you down. I'm actually not only scrutinizing you to go towards a mental health condition where you're going to say that, okay, I wish I was not even alive, because I've given you all those statements where you will be convinced, knowing that, okay, I'm good for nothing, right? But do you really think it's only going to help? It's only going to scrutinize or hurt people who are receiving the contempt. Not only that, it's somewhere where people who are constantly giving contempt are also at loss, because contempt takes a lot of negativity inside you to actually project on the other person. So it's like a two-way street. Okay, Varnika, please understand. Someone, so we had an example, like, I'm giving you a contempt here that, you can't do dishes because you're a loser. And Varnika will go in a psych that, oh my god, I'm a loser, I can't even do something so mundane. And you'll constantly live in that cycle. Similarly, I'll also live in that cycle that, what a useless person I'm in touch with. Whereas we are still there in the relationship. You're getting my point, what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So somewhere we are unnecessarily increasing the toxicity of that relationship and living in it. So I'm giving you the toxicity, you're taking the toxicity. Now, what's happening here? This negative cycle actually takes you to your emotional response. So, as you understand, as a clinical psychologist, I know you can add more to it. You are constantly on that fight or flight cycle. Your response is always going to be from amygdala, and you're constantly going to stay in your emotional brain. So, the decision making, the criticality of life, the choices that you're going to make, which will be taken from your prefrontal cortex, is going to be like all conked off, because you're not connected there. You're constantly going to be in that loop where you're sucking yourself. Same goes with the contempt. The person who's contemptuous, he's also staying, or she's also staying in that same loop, and responding from amygdala only. So now when you're there and when you're disconnected from your thinking brain, you're kind of asking your cortisol to keep on, uh, secreting and keep on, releasing from your body. And what happens when you have high cortisol, right? Varnik, I hope you understand that. The more cortisol we release, the more body is unnecessarily taking that burnout, and kind of when you are in that chronic stress, you are leading towards a system where your body is getting weakened day by day. So eventually your immunity loses. And in one of the researches, and where John Gottman mentioned that that contempt and constantly staying in that relationship where the contempt is going to lead you towards weakened immunity. So your body will start feeling that simple symptoms like constantly sneezing, having migraine headache. With a little weather change, you land up having chest congestion. These are very common conditions, and a lot of people say, "अरे ये तो हवा पानी बदली है ना, तभी हम बीमार हुए हैं." But it's not like that. It's not हवा पानी बदली. आप वही हवा पानी में हो, उसी toxicity में हो, and that's why you're leading that constant. What do you say? You're living in that loop of physical, mental health battle, or and you enjoying it, and of course you understand that the more weak you become, the more unhealthy you become physically, it's further torturing you emotionally, it's further, you know, taking you towards mental illness, which people don't realize. We are resilient, we are born to become resilient. So a lot of people don't even come to know that they are going through emotional and mental trauma. And that's what contempts take you to.
So, to what you have explained to all of us quite beautifully, contempt is something like, somebody is having this feeling of superiority, or they are feeling that disdain altogether. They're disrespectful towards their partners. And it has a lot of negative side effects, not only like on somebody like physically, but psychologically also. And even the person who's being at the receiving end, like they also keep on going into those loops altogether. And specifically, like, talking about a relationship altogether, partners are quite close to each other, and their connection, their intimacy, their personal well being can be quite jeopardized for it. And I would agree with you, how you said that, that toxicity continues. So we can say, that's the entire deterioration of somebody's empathy or compassion in the relationship altogether. And it will reduce somebody's emotional connection, and it will make their attitude quite negative. Okay. Tell me one thing, Kriti, over here. Can the act of giving the contempt have a physical consequence on the other person also? Like we said, that it is stressful for the person who's quite receiving it also. And there is negativity which is getting created in the other person also. But could you highlight and specifically tell me, like, the person who's exhibiting that contempt towards
Right.
their partner, is it like something that they're also going through specifically? Are there some demarcators, some parameters that we can check them also on?
So understand contempt is a behavior, right? And I hope you understand that when we communicate, the way we communicate is part of behaviorism, right? And in our classic cognitive triad, our actions are somewhere associated with our own feelings and how we think about our life, right? You know, the thought process, complete cognitive processes involved here. So somewhere deep down, we have our belief system. We function from a pattern, you know, which we have been trained throughout our life, you know, which we have been probably we have been seeing, we have been observing, we have been, you know, socially adapting, right? So that becomes our defensive pattern, or what you call ego, in how Freud
Yes.
talks about it, right? The defense mechanism that we have, because it saves you, you know. So when we are going back to amygdala, the idea is that we have a threat, and the contempt kind of comes from a threat. So I come from a pattern. I come from a pattern where I have observed a behaviorism, and that's what I'm repeating. As simple as it is. It could be my own belief. It could be the belief that I have learned from other people. So somewhere I am responsible for my own cognitive process with me. Now we all understand when we stay in that negative loop. And what is negative loop? If we stay in that triad of that thought process, that cognitive process, the feeling, those emotional responses, and based on that, the actions that we take, if we stay in that loop, and it will all, and if it has a negative impact, you're getting my point. Now today, if my contempt makes you go do the chores and you're happy about it, then it's a functional triad, right? But if you are sinking and sulking that, okay, you know, why am I even doing it? And why am I even there? Why do I even have to do dishes, you know, just because Kriti said this to me? And you're questioning your own self worth here. Now, while you are doing that, I am constantly feeling that I am winning, but then I'm not winning. Don't see, it's a two-way street, I told you. Your constant screw up is going to make me further get into that negative cycle. So the more I stay in that cognitive process, the more I am in that emotional brain. The more that I am in the emotional brain clearly shows that I'm inviting chronic stress. So even if
Quite
I am
true.
someone who's feeling powerful here, you know, feels superior by letting Varnika down, I'm still going through a lot of health issues which I don't even realize. I will not even realize even if I have a liver failure. because mentally and
Hmm.
emotionally I'm not even aware of it. But physically, it has done the damage. You're getting my point. So the giver is also having these health related issues which they don't even realize. So that's why I mentioned that it's a silent killer. It's like hidden. You don't even know it's something that is killing individually in that relationship. And that's why I feel it's very important for us to address this issue as soon as possible, as soon as it is diagnosed, as soon as you come to know that, okay, I am not feeling worthy in a particular relationship, or I am
Hmm.
someone who's getting attacked again and again. So it's important for us to address it then and there. It is important for the giver to also know that you are constantly in contempt. You're getting my point here.
Yeah. So it sounds like this cycle of negativity just follows through for both the people, and there it builds a lot of defensiveness, a lot of retaliation from the partner, and that, like, creates a vicious cycle in the relationship. There can be like justifying of someone's behavior, relationship will deteriorate. So it's like, if I put it in the simplest colloquial saying, it's like what goes around comes around. It becomes a cycle and it just continues on that particular trap altogether. Well, although we're talking about why people do this, and there are physical reactions also, and their egos are satisfied with it. So, why do actually people go into this direction, that they start to manifest this contempt in their relationship? Does it like comes from a simplistic place of like, I'm personally frustrated about something? Or could it be like, somewhere which could be somewhere in my past? It is like somewhere much more deeper. Why would I actually show contempt towards my partner?
So, rightly said, Varnika. Actually, this is what it is. It's not that everybody is born with a nature, where when I'm born and I'm going to, I have a personality, so I'm going to do this to you. It doesn't come from there. Okay, it comes from experiences that I have, and how I'm actually working on my own life. So see, when we talk about mental health today, it's exactly like, it's like telling people that, please get control of yourself, rather than your brain taking the control. So you're right here, because the contempt doesn't come just because I got married to you and suddenly the contempt came, or suddenly there's a relationship and I start feeling superior about it. No, it comes from where there are some unmet expectations, and relationships are all about expectations, by the way, right? And somewhere they are unrealistic. Shadi karte hi suddenly we feel that everything will be hunky dory and the work will go for a toss. The kind of effort that we take when we are about to get married, and the kind of effort we try to build that romantic relationship, that goes all bonkers at that after the marriage, because suddenly when you get married, you start feeling that this is, I feel the ownership. Okay, now I start assuming that everybody will understand my expectations, everybody will understand what's going around and what am I thinking. Now somebody who has a grandiose nature and who probably will develop contempt as a characteristic is actually, you know, feeling like a loser themselves, by the way. So if I'm calling you that, you're a loser, I am a loser. I must have not achieved something. I must not have got something from you which I was expecting, I don't know, from goddamn so many ages. And just because for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, me trying to, giving you all those clues that please, go do the dishes, and you're still not doing it. I'm like trying to now, getting more frustrated and like, yeah, एक dishes ही तो मांगा था इससे. And see, this is my belief again, this is my thought process. And
Correct.
because I feel that, okay, this is not happening, there's a resentment. Now, suddenly the feeling that I have for you, which is love and compassion and affection, is like, yeah, यार मैंने पूरी दुनिया में एक वरने का कोई ढूंढा जिसको, doesn't know how to do the dishes.
Dishes
Your thought
altogether.
process now starts, changing. And because you're constantly repeating that resentment towards another person, the contempt suddenly, comes to you as a behaviorism. And that's where it pops up. Now, when you said that, is it frustration deep inside? Yes, yes. Now, this is just one incident. Now, what am I going to do? I'm a human being. I will not reflect on it. I will not say, ki, okay, this is my belief and I'm all going wrong here. I'll start associating with everything that Varnika is doing wrong. And
Hmm.
I'm actually, getting more frustrated by everything that you're doing wrong. And let me tell you, it's not because Varnika is doing wrong, everybody, audience. It's not because I'm getting frustrated on Varnika. There's something that I wanted from my own life is also parallelly not happening. So this is something that is displaced on a particular human being, and I'm going to keep on blaming that person. So uh, actually the concept of gaslighting came from this, that okay, I gaslight and I feel that power somewhere. I'm actually hiding my own frustration. I'm hiding my own incapacity to do things the way I want to do. So yes, this is pretty much deep. So when we talk about relationship healing or relational therapy, we want to deal with these issues, and we have to deal with it emotionally. So not just on a behaviorism level, but emotionally. So that's about it.
So very well explained. What I understand from this is not only will a person go into contempt and do that, but they would also avoid their own personal reflections also. They'll start using contempt like some form of defense mechanism, like you said, that they would displace. And that would not let them self-examine themselves. They'll start perceiving and focusing on what's wrong with their partners, and this contempt will avoid them from facing the actual areas or issues of their own growth. So personal development would also get jeopardized in this some way or the other. And like you rightly pointed over here, Kriti, that it is something of my belief system which will keep on getting reinforced. So I'll start developing this very cynical view about the world also. I will have a lot of negative beliefs also about the other people. But this brings me to one particular question. If couples recognize that they are somewhere having a contempt on each other, and this contempt is becoming a problem in their relationship, what can they actually do to begin the process of healing altogether? Like, are there some specific simple therapies or strategies, simplest enough for the couples to even practice? Would you recommend something like that?
So, uh, before that, I'll let you know that it's something that needs to be assessed. It needs to be uh, understood, in your relationship. So it's in a very early stage, the contempt can be felt. It can be. So as I told you, Gottman gave us four horsemen, right? Four concepts. So you'll see that stonewalling and criticism is happening. So we don't really want contempt to happen. As I told you, contempt is a behaviorism which will take you to deeper level of frustration and chronic stress. So what is important is to understand where it is starting, and it is important to actually break it there, or make that changes then and there. Of course, when we reach contempt, or when we have a relationship where too much of toxicity or negative cyclic pattern has got into or seeped into, that's where you'd really need help. Because अगर मैं उसमें कहूंगी कि please use I statements, reflect
Hmm.
and tell that, Varnika, I would appreciate if you can go and wash the utensils. Simple, as simple as it is. But this doesn't come so easy when you've already reached there, right? So this is where psychotherapist and counselors comes into picture, because they really need to navigate through those emotional responses to break that pattern, and then bring them to this kind of practice where they can reflect on what they actually want, rather than uh, telling people that okay, this is what you do because you don't do this. So coming to blaming, instead of blaming others, just reflect on yourself. What is it that you want? Now that is a very important aspect of relationship, because it calls for vulnerability. To tell you that I'm sad because something did not go well in my workplace, and I'm so unhappy. It needs a lot of courage. But I will not do that. I'll rather say, तुमको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, मुझे तंग करे जा रहे हो या करी जा रही हो, मैं परेशान हूँ, दिखता नहीं है. So instead of telling कि, I'm a little upset today, I have something which was something that I couldn't deal with. Can I get some time out here? Instead of being open about what I really want, I am using statements which will, give me a safeguard, basically, the defense thing. Now, this happens from, a very small uh, issues. That this comes with very little uh, temperamental aspects of relationship. If it could be addressed at that point of time, then it will not become contempt. Then it will be just a simple criticism, and you will know how to navigate around it, because criticism could be navigated in just simple assertive statements. Contempt, on the contrary, really needs a self-reflection, emotional regulation, to build in. Like, I have to fake compassion if I have to come out of contempt, because
Hmm.
contempt is coming to me because I don't like you anymore. Because I've started believing that you're not fit for my growth, because I'm not growing. I'm losing somewhere. So I feel you are a misfit for me. And if I have that feeling, where is I statement going to go? Nowhere. So I really need to work around my emotional aspects at that point of time. So obviously, it's very difficult to do it by yourself. You really need a therapist. I mean, if you say that, okay, give me an easy tool here, and if I say, okay, you get into box breathing and start reflecting on yourself, this is not going to be easy for somebody who's going through so many emotional challenges, right? So clear cut, when we talk about contempt in relationship, they need help. That means they need help. They've really damaged the relationship to a level where they need to um, seek professional help, as simple as it is, because your communication has gone for a toss. You are not having intimate relationship anymore. Sex is not there anymore. The satisfaction of being together, the dynamics of companionship is all lost. So what are we expecting? The complete effect of contempt on relationship is bizarre. It's not worth it anymore. You are making the other person feel वो worthless है, वो इस relationship के लायक ही नहीं था, वो इसके क्या किसी relationship के लायक नहीं था. Plus you also know that nobody deserves you, because you suddenly feel कि अरे, I'm way above people. Because contempt में you feel that you feel a win. अब मुझे खुद बताओ पढ़ने का, you being a clinical psychologist, at this stage where there is no awareness and you are not even moving to a single step towards acceptance, do you really think कि कोई घर में की हुई रेमेडी काम आएगी, या कोई घर में
No, I think
किया हुआ?
rather mental health challenges will increase. It will make me just more vulnerable towards having depression or anxiety.
Exactly.
I will focus so much on the negativity and the breakdowns of the positive connections that the individual will just stop experiencing joy, or that contentment altogether. And that overall will keep on impacting my mental health over and over and over again. So I would not be happy. And, this reminds me of that simple stress diathesis model also, how physical health will also keep on getting worse. Like my blood pressure will shoot up. I might develop a heart disease. Like you mentioned, my immune system also might, fail at somewhere or the other. I'll have a lot of negative emotions. But one thing, Kriti, I want to ask over here. Since you're a relationship coach over here, once a person, let's say they're far along in contempt, they've not realized it in the very beginning or
Hmm.
the initial phases, can we somehow create empathy or respect within them to reverse these negative effects of contempt? And somehow, can couples work through this and formulate some effective communication tactics? Because even if I don't realize it early in my relationship, but somewhere along the line, let's say I gather that insight, then how do I go about it?
So, first of all, this requires a lot of patience. Someone who is constantly in contemptuous behavior will not realize it, but the other person will, because the person who's receiving will start feeling the physical and mental health issues in a very early stage. Now, if the receiver takes a step, you know, and actually comes forward and tries to, instead of reacting or retaliating to whatever is happening, uh, and see, one thing is very important. Is relationship important to you? That's important. Are you important to yourself? If that is clear to you, then then this thing can happen. So all what you need is patience. And why do we need patience? We need patience because we need to develop empathy towards that person. I told you, contempt is coming from a deeper issue, right? It is coming from some deeper cognitive process that has not been handled properly, right? So that person who's in constant contempt behavior somewhere needs help, right? So the receiver can empower themselves, become more patient, work towards empathy, understand that other person is going through something really deep, and just keep, replacing the other person's contempt with compassion and wait for the miracle to happen. Because as we also know that when we consistently show a particular behavior, the other person will somewhere observe and learn from it. And that's the basic of the psychology, that's behaviorism. That's the behaviorism that we have learned, right? That, we're going to observe and you're going to learn from it someday or the other. So that kind of patience is required. When I was learning this kind of relational therapy, I understood one thing, that it can take from 3 months to 10 years. So do you have that kind of patience? But yes, it can be changed. So observed learning is something which is very, very effective when it comes to relationship. All we need to do is keep showing compassion, become empathetic to your own self, start focusing on yourself, empower yourself, and demonstrate a particular behavior that the other person will somewhere, melt down. Until unless it's a disorder, then that's a different thing altogether, Then we need to take it in a different way. But uh, it's very important uh, to understand that, communication also plays a very important role. You can't go silent. You can't say, I can't communicate. It's difficult to communicate. We have to learn how to work towards difficult conversations. We have to bring that difficult conversations into constructive conversations instead of huge big set of discussion. Have single liners but do converse. So these are few things that can be done in a negative cyclic pattern uh, that we can observe in relationship, in order to reverse what's happening with the person who's consistently showing a behaviorism that's literally damaging your relationship. So you're getting my point, Varnika. Yeah, it is. We can reverse it. We can. All you need is patience and compassion. It may look philosophical, but it's true. It works like that.
So it's like breaking a long term habit and building that trust, that openness to your relationship, forming that very genuine, supportive connection altogether with your partner in some way or the other. I learned a lot of things about, like, I would rarely say you opened my horizon over here to think about a lot of things, and I do come up with a lot of questions also. But I want to understand, like, since you have been into relationship and intimacy coaching from quite some time, in your experience as a relationship coach, have you seen, like, couples who successfully recovered from this contempt, even if it is short lived or long lived? Like, if you could share any particular such example with us.
Yeah, actually, I'll rather tell you, a divorce was reversed. The divorce was this divorce was happening because of typical narcissistic behavior, as we call, in today's scenario. People don't really know what narcissism is, but just let's. So this case was where they landed up in divorce, and there was this huge uh, what do you say, the the man, the husband, was showing a hardcore narcissistic behavior, and somewhere it was very difficult for the lady to, continue in the relationship because it was beyond her capacity to deal with it. Now during the process of divorce, of course, divorce in our country can be very nasty, right? It has a different, it's not very uh, pretty in our country. It's not like
Hmm.
how Western people deal with it. But luckily, when they landed up with a counselor uh, in the legal system, who kind of told them to, see the coach, and they came to me, of course, after that, that it's better that, you resolve. Because see, what happens is they listen to the story, they understand what's happening. And what was happening here was that the external dynamics, the family dynamics was creating a lot of frustration. As I told you, contempt comes from some frustration. The man actually starts feeling incapable of dealing with situation, and that's how the complex comes into them, and they want to deal with it. So this guy was constantly demonstrating contemptuous behavior, and the girl just couldn't understand that how she can deal with it, because she left the job, she left everything, she came to a different community altogether, and she's like, I did enough. What more can I do? I have nothing more to offer. Without her realizing that there's a lot of other things that she could do, as I told you, compassion, bringing empathy. Now, when a love marriage fails, it hurts, and it hurts both of them. The beauty in this case was when the divorce process happened, the man suddenly realized that, oh my God, I love this person. Okay.